In an eye for an eye, convicted of murdering her husband, Tahereh served her sentence and now faces a ticking clock to negotiate with her in-laws who, under Sharia law, have the legal right to either execute her or forgive her for a price. An Eye for an Eye is directed by Fazad Jafari and Tanaz Eshjian, and this is Fahad's directorial debut, but Tanaz has previously directed films such as Be Like Others and Love Crimes of Kabul. An Eye for an Eye just debuted at the Tribeca Film Festival. An Eye for an Eye is a quite compelling documentary set in Iran and really shines a light on how difficult it is for women at the moment in Iran, especially if they're stuck in a marriage that they're not very happy with. The men have all of the power in the relationship. The man can divorce his wife whenever he wants, but the wife cannot divorce her husband whenever she wants. She has to seek permission from the court, and I guess majority of the time the court will not permit divorce from her husband. Then most of the time the court will force the woman back into the marriage, just fix any problem in the marriage. And in this film, Tahereh, for 14-15 years ago, she was stuck in a marriage with a man who had drug issues, addicted to opioid and domestic violence issues in the family. And Tahereh reached a boiling point once when her husband was in a drug-induced state. She ended up suffocating, murdering him, and with the help of her children, she wrapped him in a rug and buried him in the house and covered him in cement. And they left the house and lived in a new apartment. And then several months later, the owner of the apartment discovered Tahereh's husband buried in the house. Tahereh was convicted of murder and spent 14 years in jail and was released in jail. And now when we meet her now, her kids are all grown up, and Tahereh is in the process of negotiating with her in-laws, because her in-laws have the right to execute her for the death of her husband or for some blood money. They can accept this blood money and Tahereh doesn't have to get executed, but the amount of this blood money is decided by the in-laws. And in this film there's some anti-execution experts who they go from family to family trying to persuade the in-laws of families, please do not execute this person. Let's kind of negotiate, let's forgive, let's get together and negotiate some kind of reasonable blood money so we can move on and families can move on with their lives. And in this film, Tahereh's in-laws, the mother of the murdered husband, she has not had a very happy time the last 15 years. She has not gotten over the death of her son, and she really wants Tahereh to pay for this. She wants her to be executed, but her children, her son, are much more forgiving. They've kind of torn between, okay, should we grant our mother's wish, or should we forgive Tahereh and accept the blood money? And Tahereh and her family have 3 months to come up with the amount of blood money before she gets executed. So there's a ticking time bomb in this film, and Tahereh's in-laws decide on initially about 2 billion Iranian dollars. It's about $40,000 American, and eventually they get it down to about $20,000 And after this 3-month period, Tahereh and her family managed to raise about 80% of this money. And so when they get to the end of the 3 months, at the end of the film, everybody's in a room together, and the anti-execution experts with lawyers and Tahereh's family and the in-laws. The Tahereh's lawyers said that this is how much we managed to raise, this is the best we could do. And there's a twist about halfway through the film where Tahereh's brother ends up passing away, and Tahereh's brother really doesn't want his sister-in-law to be executed, so he's quite forgiving, he's quite flexible, but he ends up passing away halfway through the film. So once we get to this final meeting at the end of the film, it's the nephew, the much younger nephew in his 20s, who's kind of the man of the family. So he is not so forgiving. He's not really doesn't really have a history with Tahereh's family. So he's kind of on the side of the grandmother. He wants her executed. And then when they don't have enough money, blood money, that they agreed on, he really decides that he wants Tahereh executed. For me, in this film is about 1 hour and 20 minutes long, a little bit longer than that. And the first hour of this film gets quite repetitive. It's just Tahereh trying to raise money for the blood money, and it's just the same things over and over again. So it did get a little bit repetitive for me, but in the final act of the film, the final 20 minutes of the film is so powerful. I'm able to overlook the flaws in the first hour of the film. The final hour of the film, once Tahereh and her family are face to face with her in-laws, there's a lot of anguish. You can understand both sides of the family. Everybody's hurting. I think Tahereh's in-laws don't really know the extent of Tahereh's husband's domestic issues. I think they don't really believe Tahereh. They kind of think Tahereh is a little bit conniving, that she legitimately murdered her husband because she wasn't happy, because she wasn't granted a divorce. So her in-laws are not really in on what really happened in their marriage. So they are really against Tahereh, and so you kind of understand their side of their viewpoint, but you understand Tahereh's viewpoint. It's like, okay, she's ready to be executed. Her family is really distraught. She doesn't want, of course, they don't want their mother to be executed. So in this final 20 minutes of the film, there's a lot of negotiation and hurting and forgiveness, and it's very, very powerful, and it really comes to a satisfying and powerful conclusion. I give An Eye for an Eye 3.5 stars out of 5. This documentary does get a little bit repetitive in the first hour of the film, but once we get to the final 20 minutes of the film, it's very powerful. It comes to a very harrowing, heartfelt, emotional finale, and I really recommend checking out this film. It's really such an eye-opening viewpoint of what married women in Iran are going through at the moment. So I definitely recommend checking out this film, An Eye for an Eye. Thanks for watching. What did you think of An Eye for an Eye? Please comment below what you thought of the film. See you next time. Bye.